Then there was another rumor that she was not only pregnant, but potentially pregnant by a young baller, basketball player.
NBA legend Shaq has sparked fresh controversy after unleashing a fiery response aimed at Vanessa Bryant's alleged baby daddy. The outspoken Hall of Famer didn't hold back, delivering sharp words that sent social media into a frenzy. Fans are now asking one big question: what exactly led to Shaq's outburst? The players who got pulled into Vanessa's orbit. To understand why that moment landed the way it did, and why it ignited the internet in a way that almost nothing else in celebrity culture that year managed to do, you have to understand the full history. Every rumor, every player named, every confrontation, public and private, every denial Vanessa has been forced to issue in response to things she should never have been asked about in the first place. And you have to start not in 2025, you have to start in 2003. Because the very first time an NBA player was accused of having inappropriate intentions toward Vanessa Bryant, Kobe was still alive to handle it himself. And the way he handled it, the specific, public, no ambiguity whatsoever way he shut it down, became the blueprint for every confrontation that followed, except that every version that came after it was missing one critical element: Kobe. The 2003 incident involving Karl Malone is one of the most documented, most reported, and least fully understood episodes in Lakers history. On the surface, it reads as a footnote, a locker room incident involving a veteran player who said something out of line and paid a professional price for it. Beneath the surface, it was a defining moment for the Kobe-Vanessa marriage, for the dynamics of the Lakers roster during their most turbulent season, and for the specific way that NBA culture processes and reacts to the personal lives of the women attached to its biggest names. Karl Malone was 40 years old during the 2003-2004 season. He had joined the Lakers that year on a veteran minimum contract, chasing a championship ring he had never won during his Hall of Fame career in Utah. He arrived with enormous goodwill, the mailman, one of the greatest power forwards the game had ever produced, grinding out one more shot at glory in the twilight of his career. And then, during a home game against the Milwaukee Bucks on November 23, 2003, he had a conversation with Vanessa Bryant courtside that changed everything. The exchange began with Vanessa asking Malone a question, lighthearted, casual, the kind of small talk that happens at courtside before a game, when she noticed him in a cowboy hat and boots. She asked him what he was hunting. His response, delivered twice, was, "I'm hunting for little Mexican girls." The comment landed exactly as badly as it sounds. Vanessa ended the conversation immediately and reported it to Kobe. Kobe's response was immediate, public, and left no room for misinterpretation. He confronted Malone directly and told him, in terms that were clear enough to make headlines, to stay away from his wife. The question of what the remark meant and whether it crossed a line was settled, from Kobe's perspective, before the next practice. This was not a small story at the time. Malone's agent, Dwight Manley, acknowledged that the exchange happened but framed the remarks as banter, maintaining that no ill intent was behind them. Malone himself offered a conditional apology via phone to both Vanessa and Kobe, but refused to admit that his behavior had been inappropriate. The word conditional is important, not a full apology, not an unqualified acknowledgement that what he said to another man's wife, a 21-year-old woman who had not invited the conversation, was out of bounds. A conditional apology, accompanied by the framing that it had been playful, that people were overreacting, that Kobe and Vanessa were taking something casual far too seriously. The NBA absorbed the story the way it absorbs most stories involving the personal lives of the women in its orbit, with minimal institutional response, maximum media coverage of the basketball implications, and zero meaningful accountability for the man at the center of it. Malone left the Lakers after the season ended, following a finals loss to the Detroit Pistons. He told reporters in 2015 that if Kobe was still upset about what happened, he would knuckle up. The apology, conditional as it was, apparently had a built-in expiration date, and Vanessa, who had been 21 years old when a 40-year-old teammate of her husband's decided to tell her what he was hunting for, was left to carry the specific weight of having been made to feel unsafe in a space that her husband's career occupied by a man who faced no meaningful consequence for it. The Malone incident would have faded entirely into the footnotes of Lakers history had it not been for what happened afterward. Because the interesting thing about the way that incident was processed inside the locker room, inside the media, inside the fan base, is that a significant segment of the reaction landed not on Malone, whose conduct had been the source of the problem, but on Vanessa. She was accused of exaggerating. She was accused of escalating unnecessarily. She was accused of being a source of division on a roster that was already fractured by the Shaq-Kobe feud. An entire analytical layer of commentary around the 2003-2004 Lakers treated Vanessa Bryant's report of what had happened to her as a contributing factor to the team's dysfunction, not Malone's behavior, her report of it. That dynamic, the specific, consistent, culturally embedded instinct to make Vanessa the problem whenever something uncomfortable happens in her vicinity, is the thread that runs from the Karl Malone incident in November 2003 all the way to the summer of 2025. It does not skip a beat. It does not evolve. It simply scales up, because by 2025, Kobe is no longer alive to confront anyone on her behalf, and the men who claimed they would fill that gap have demonstrated through their choices and their silences and their Instagram activity exactly what they meant by protection. The most prominent, most persistent, and most damaging of the 2025 rumors linked Vanessa Bryant to Jaylen Brown, a 28-year-old all-star for the Boston Celtics. The age gap was 17 years. The cultural leverage of that gap, in the context of a widow whose husband had been one of the sport's all-time greats, was enormous, and the people who built the rumor understood exactly how to use it. Jaylen Brown had reportedly ended his relationship with former WNBA player Kaisri Gondrezic in February 2025, making him newly single at the exact moment the rumor machinery was looking for a face to attach to the story it was building about Vanessa. The timing was, as with so many details in this story, not accidental. Beginning in June 2025, a wave of viral collages and AI-generated images began circulating on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and X, purportedly showing Vanessa and Brown together at a dinner date, kissing, and in one version that spread particularly fast, with Vanessa visibly pregnant beside him. None of the images were real. Every single one of them was later confirmed as AI manipulated or digitally fabricated. But by the time those confirmations arrived, the images had already been shared hundreds of thousands of times. The post claiming Vanessa was expecting her fifth child, after Natalia, Bianca, Capri, and the late Gianna, had already reached millions of people who had no way of knowing in real time that what they were looking at was manufactured content designed specifically to damage a real person's reputation. By August 2025, the deepfake campaign had reached its peak velocity, prompting direct public pushback from people in Vanessa's wider orbit. A'ja Wilson's brother, Ronaldo Wilson, called out the trolls and the deepfakes by name, publicly identifying the content as fabricated and urging people to stop spreading it. Vanessa herself addressed the fakes on Instagram, labeling them fake news and urging her audience not to believe rumors that had no factual foundation. Jaylen Brown said nothing publicly, which is not, by itself, unusual, but which left the rumor with no direct rebuttal from the person named as the other party in it. Vanessa's most direct response came at the US Open in September 2025, where she was photographed with a drink in hand, relaxed and apparently unbothered, and where she posted a caption that combined denial with barely contained exhaustion at having to deliver it. She wrote, "Keep me posted on how this imaginary pregnancy rumor is coming along." 24 years later, same rumor, 24 years. She was counting back to her earliest years with Kobe, when the same machinery, different names, different platforms, same underlying impulse, had been manufacturing stories about her body and her choices before she was even old enough to legally drink. The rumor had not changed in a quarter century. Only the technology used to spread it had. Brown has not addressed the rumors directly as of early March 2026. No credible evidence of any interaction between Vanessa Bryant and Jaylen Brown, romantic, personal, or otherwise, has ever been produced. The entire edifice of the rumor was built on images, anonymous social media posts, and the cultural appetite for a story that allowed people to feel they were evaluating Vanessa Bryant's loyalty to a dead man while consuming content they knew, on some level, had not been verified. The Jaylen Brown rumor was, from beginning to end, a fiction, but it was a fiction with consequences, because it was the Jaylen Brown rumor, the peak of the 2025 campaign against Vanessa's reputation, that gave Shaquille O'Neal the specific on-ramp he used to drive his Instagram live confrontation straight into the middle of her life. Shaq's confrontation and the history behind it. Shaquille O'Neal has spoken publicly about Vanessa Bryant more times than most people realize, and the arc of those statements, traced from 2020 through to August 2025, tells a story that does not match the image he has cultivated as Kobe's loyal protector. To understand what made his Instagram live confrontation so explosive, and why the internet's reaction to it went so much deeper than standard celebrity gossip outrage, you have to hold the full timeline in your hands and look at it without flinching, because what that timeline shows is not a man who stepped up for Vanessa Vanessa in her worst moments, and then made one misstep in the summer of 2025. It shows a man who was conspicuously absent for 5 consecutive years of her most documented struggles, and then suddenly became loudly, publicly present the moment he had something to say about her personal life. In January 2020, immediately following the crash, Shaq's response was everything the moment called for. He posted on X expressing his grief, describing Kobe as his brother and Gianna as his niece, and stating he was sick over the loss. He gave an emotional interview in which he said he had not yet had the chance to speak with Vanessa, but wanted her to know that his family's arms were open, and that he hoped her daughters would call him Uncle Shaq the way his own children had called Kobe Uncle Kobe. At Kobe's memorial, he delivered remarks that broke the arena. He made promises, specific, public, on-camera promises about watching over the girls, about keeping the brotherhood alive, about being present for the family in the years ahead. The world heard those promises. Millions of people watched him make them. And in the immediate aftermath of the crash, there was no reason to doubt them. Then, August 2022 arrived, and Vanessa sat in a courtroom fighting Los Angeles County over sheriff's deputies who had leaked graphic photographs of her husband and daughter's remains from the crash site. Images that were shared at a social gathering, passed around on phones like entertainment. Shaq gave an interview to ET Online in which he said he felt for Vanessa and that he could not imagine what she was going through. He said they had always had respect for each other, and that every time he saw her, it was a hug and a laugh. He said she was doing a great thing by holding people responsible. Those were kind words, appropriate words, but they were words delivered in an interview, not action taken in a courtroom, not a public statement of support issued on his own timeline without being asked, not a post on his social media platforms, the same platforms he would later use to confront her, directing his millions of followers toward the case and the woman fighting it. The distance between expressing sympathy when asked in an interview and using your platform proactively to defend someone in their worst moments is enormous. And Shaq never closed that distance, not during the crash photo lawsuit, not during the Nike dispute, when Vanessa publicly clashed with a billion-dollar corporation over the unauthorized use of her late daughter's name and image, not during the lawsuit filed by Vanessa's own mother, who chose national television as the venue to air grievances about a car and a home while her daughter was still in the early stages of processing 2 deaths. Through every one of those documented, public, on-record battles, Shaq's voice, the voice that would prove so readily available for an Instagram live about pregnancy rumors, was quiet, supportive when prompted, silent when it counted. In a 2025 ET interview, Shaq mentioned that he checked on Kobe's mother Pam monthly, saying she was a wonderful woman and that he understood the pain she went through. A warm sentiment, and a genuine one by all appearances. But worth noting, in that same interview, his comments about Vanessa herself were considerably more muted. The woman carrying the full operational weight of Kobe's legacy, running the foundation, managing the estate, raising the daughters, fighting the legal battles, received a fraction of the warmth that Shaq extended to Pam Bryant, the woman whose relationship with Vanessa had been strained for decades and whose husband had once had to be sued by their own son to stop an unauthorized auction of his personal memorabilia. Then came August 2025. The Jaylen Brown rumors were at their peak. The podcast commentary was building. The internet machinery was running at full speed, and Vanessa had already issued multiple denials that the audience had either missed or chosen to ignore. And in the middle of all of that, with the full knowledge that rumors about Vanessa's personal life were being used to attack and discredit her, Shaq went live, and instead of using that platform to call out the deepfakes, to identify the rumor as fabricated, to direct his enormous audience toward Vanessa's own clear and repeated denials, he did the opposite. He engaged the rumors as though they were credible. He expressed disappointment. He framed the scenario in which a widow might date a younger man as a betrayal of Kobe's memory. He gave the story exactly the signal boost it needed to graduate from internet gossip to mainstream conversation. Reports from that August 2025 Instagram Live described Shaq's words as heavy with disappointment, with the implication throughout that a new relationship or pregnancy, if true, would represent a betrayal of Kobe's legacy and a disrespect to the Bryant name. He referenced a young NBA player without naming anyone specifically, which, in the context of a rumor cycle that had already named Jaylen Brown extensively, functioned as a de facto confirmation to the audience that the rumors were being taken seriously by someone with inside knowledge. He did not frame it as concern for Vanessa. He framed it as concern for Kobe, for the legacy, for the memory, for the name. Vanessa, in that framing, was not the person being protected. She was the threat. The response from Vanessa's circle was immediate and furious. Privately, she reportedly called out the hypocrisy directly, pointing to every battle she had fought without Shaq's support, every court hearing he had not attended, every public attack he had not intervened in. every moment she had carried Kobe's legacy alone, while the men who claimed brotherhood had been silent. Sources close to Vanessa indicated she was especially pointed about where Shaq had been when she fought the county over the crash photos, when Nike used Gigi's image without consent, and when her own mother sued her on national television. Those are specific, documented grievances, and the fact that the man who had publicly declared himself a family protector had no meaningful answer to any of them changed the way the internet read his confrontation entirely. That detail, the connection between the photographer who captured the image that sparked the rumor and the PR agency previously associated with Shaq's brand team, is the most structurally significant piece of information in this entire story, and it is the detail that received the least coverage in the mainstream press. The original photograph from the Malibu brunch that was described in the first sports blog post to mention the pregnancy rumors, the image whose description went viral even though the image itself never appeared publicly, was reportedly taken by a person with documented professional ties to Shaq's business, Orbit. That is not a coincidence that can be dismissed easily. That is a provable connection between the origin point of the rumor and the man who would later give it its most high-profile public amplification. The internet began digging the moment the live went viral, and what it found in Shaq's social media history made the concerned uncle framing look increasingly difficult to sustain. Screenshots surfaced showing Shaq engaging with gossip accounts that had been spreading rumors about Vanessa for months, liking posts that questioned her loyalty to Kobe's legacy, commenting on content that called her ungrateful for cutting ties with Nike. These were not passive interactions. Liking a post is a choice. Commenting on content is a choice, and the pattern of those choices, assembled and displayed publicly by fans who had gone looking for them, painted a very specific picture of a man who had been quietly co-signing Vanessa's public humiliation for months before going live to perform concern about it. When confronted about the activity, Shaq said he did not remember every post he had liked, that he had been looking out for his brother's family. The internet was not satisfied with that answer, and in the days that followed, several of the championship-era photographs Shaq had posted of himself with Kobe, captioned with language about brotherhood and loyalty and family forever, quietly disappeared from his profile. Not all at once, gradually, the way content disappears when the person removing it has realized it now reads as evidence of something they would rather not be associated with. A former Lakers employee subsequently leaked details about private conversations among certain NBA veterans, in which Vanessa's refusal to operate as a cooperative, visible symbol of Kobe's legacy, rather than an autonomous person managing her own life, was referred to explicitly as the Vanessa problem. The problem was not that she had done anything wrong. The problem, as defined by the people using that phrase, was that she kept doing things right, on her own terms, without asking permission from the people who believed proximity to Kobe entitled them to a voice in how his memory was managed. She fought Nike. She won. She fought the county. She won. She managed the estate. She kept the foundation running. She raised the daughters. And she refused, at every turn, to make any of it about the people standing at the perimeter of Kobe's legacy, waiting for an invitation to the center of it. That is the Vanessa problem. Not pregnancy rumors, not NBA players. The problem is that she is extraordinarily good at doing exactly what she promised Kobe she would do, and she is doing it without anyone's help. The record and the denials. By the time the dust settled on the summer of 2025, after Shaq's Instagram Live had gone viral, after the Jaylen Brown deepfakes had been debunked, after the hashtag wars had run their course and the podcast Hot Takes had been archived and the internet had moved on to the next controversy, the factual record of what had actually happened was remarkably clear. No relationship, no pregnancy, no confirmation from any named party of any romantic involvement between Vanessa Bryant and any NBA player. Every rumor from the June 2025 eruption through the February 2026 reshares had been checked, verified, and found to be baseless. Fact checks confirmed the pregnancy rumors as entirely unverified, the photographs as AI-generated deepfakes, and the reports as fabricated from start to finish. Every single accusation, every manufactured image, every anonymous insider claim, all of it invented. But the factual record does not exist in a vacuum, and the damage done by a rumor does not disappear simply because the rumor has been debunked. Vanessa Bryant spent the better part of 2025 being forced to issue denials through memes, through Instagram posts, through cryptic captions, through the mere act of appearing at public events with a drink in her hand to demonstrate visually that she was not pregnant, for things that should never have required a response in the first place. She spent that year having her body, her intimate life, and her choices treated as public debate topics by people who had no standing to debate them. She spent it being confronted publicly by a man who had promised to protect her, and she spent it watching the institutional machinery of the NBA and the broader sports media treat that confrontation as legitimate entertainment rather than what it actually was. A prominent man using his platform to question a widow's conduct toward her late husband's memory. The battles are documented. The record is public. The specific, concrete, legally verified things Vanessa Bryant has done to protect and preserve Kobe and Gigi's legacies while simultaneously being attacked from virtually every direction are not matters of opinion. They are matters of record. She sued loss. Angeles County, after sheriff's deputies leaked graphic crash site photographs and won a settlement. She sat in that courtroom and listened to testimony about images of her husband's and daughter's remains being shared at a social gathering. She did not retreat. She did not settle early to avoid the details becoming public. She saw it through to the end, and she won. She terminated the Mamba brand's relationship with Nike rather than allow her late daughter's name to be used commercially without her consent, a decision that cost her considerable financial leverage but preserved the integrity of Gianna's memory in the way Vanessa believed Gigi deserved. She has run the Mamba and Mambachita Sports Foundation continuously since Kobe's death, directing millions of dollars toward the kind of youth athletic programs that Kobe and Gigi were passionate about building. She has raised 3 daughters in the full glare of public attention while maintaining a level of privacy around their lives that protects them from the same machinery that has targeted their mother. She has done all of this without a co-pilot. Several current NBA All-Stars privately reached out to Vanessa in the aftermath of Shaq's Instagram Live, expressing regret for the league's collective silence during her public battles over the previous 5 years. 5 All-Stars, according to sources close to the Bryant family, sent personal messages. They expressed regret for not speaking up when she was fighting the county over the crash photos, for not standing beside her during the Nike dispute, for not using their platforms when her own mother was suing her. The messages were private. The support was invisible to the public, which tells you exactly how much institutional courage the NBA has when it comes to standing beside Vanessa Bryant in a way that costs its members anything at all, as opposed to saying the right things in interviews or at memorials where the camera is rolling and the moment demands it. Every rumor about Vanessa and an NBA player, from Karl Malone's courtside remarks in 2003 to the Jaylen Brown deepfakes in 2025, has followed the same underlying structure. A man, or a set of men, decides that Vanessa Bryant's body and intimate life are appropriate subjects for public commentary. The framing changes depending on the era and the platform. In 2003, it was locker room banter. In 2025, it was concern for Kobe's legacy. But the structure is identical. Her body is discussed as though it belongs to an audience. Her choices are evaluated against a standard that no man in the same situation is ever held to. And when she objects, when she issues a denial, posts a meme, appears at the US Open drinking a cocktail, or delivers any response that communicates her refusal to treat the commentary as legitimate, she is accused of being defensive, disrespectful, or insufficiently grateful for the concern being shown toward her. The Jaylen Brown rumors in particular reveal the specific mechanics of how this process works in the social media era. The rumor began with an AI-generated image, technology that did not exist in Karl Malone's era, and that has fundamentally transformed the damage that can be done to a real person's reputation in a short period of time. A Threads post alleged a recent photo showed Vanessa Bryant and Brown kissing, which was later identified as AI-manipulated content with no basis in reality. The post was widely shared before the identification. The correction received a fraction of the reach that the original false claim achieved. That asymmetry between the velocity of a damaging lie and the reach of its correction is not an accident or an unfortunate feature of the information ecosystem. It is a feature that the people manufacturing these rumors specifically rely on. They know the image will travel faster than the debunk. They know the first story will shape the audience's perception in ways the correction never fully reaches. They are building not toward a truth, but toward an impression. And the impression they are building is specifically designed to serve the people who benefit from Vanessa Bryant being perceived as disloyal, irresponsible, or ungrateful. The minor rumors linking Vanessa to figures like Rob Pelinka Pau Gasol, and Derek Fisher have all been confirmed as either entirely platonic or entirely fabricated. Pau Gasol, who has been a genuine, long-standing family friend and who is referred to as Uncle Pau by Vanessa's daughters, has been romantically linked to her in tabloid content specifically because his closeness to the family provides the appearance of plausibility. Pelinka, who has served as a legal and professional colleague in the management of Kobe's estate, has been subject to similar speculation for the same reason. In both cases, the proximity that comes from genuine, legitimate relationships of trust and professional partnership has been deliberately reframed by the rumor machinery as evidence of romantic involvement. The strategy is consistent. Identify the men in Vanessa's life who are genuinely present and trusted, and transform their presence into scandal material. Make the support she has built around herself look like a secret. Make the people who actually showed up for her look suspicious. The full, honest, assembled version of what the NBA community's relationship with Vanessa Bryant actually looks like is not a flattering picture. One former Laker made inappropriate remarks to her at courtside and received no institutional consequence. Another, the man who made the most public promises about protecting her family, spent months engaging with gossip content designed to damage her, and then confronted her on Instagram Live about her pregnancy status, while her social media history provided evidence of exactly the kind of support she had not received from him when it counted. 5 current All-Stars sent private apology messages they were unwilling to deliver publicly, and the broader league, one of the wealthiest, most visible, most culturally influential sports institutions on the planet, has watched all of this unfold from a careful, comfortable distance, offering thoughts and prayers and interview sentiments without ever putting its institutional weight behind the woman who has been carrying its most iconic player's name alone for 5 years. As of early March 2026, Vanessa Bryant has not confirmed any romantic relationship, has not announced any pregnancy, and continues her work through the Mamba and Mamba Cheetah Sports Foundation. She has answered none of it with the performance of grief that the audience demands, and has issued every denial with the specific, unbothered, I am not apologizing for being alive energy of a woman who made peace a long time ago with the fact that certain people will never be satisfied with her. She will not be diminished. She will not be managed. She will not be reduced to a symbol of permanent mourning for the convenience of people who were absent during her worst moments. And whatever she decides to do with her personal life, whenever she decides to do it, with whomever she decides to trust with that part of herself, will be her choice, made on her terms, without the approval of the men who have been taking turns deciding she owes them an explanation. Thanks for watching. If you found this video shocking and interesting, be sure to check out other similar and amazing videos on the screen. See you in the next video.